Hey folks, last week I had the privilege of sharing a devotional thought at the National Alliance meeting out in eastern Pennsylvania. And I thought I would share that devotional thought both this week and next week because it's so appropriate for all of us homeschoolers. And that verse is from Proverbs chapter 14, verse 4. Where there is no oxen, the manger or trough or stable stays clean, but with much oxen comes much increase. There's two parts to that verse. The first part is, where there's no oxen, the stable stays clean. I call that sterility. The second part is, but with much oxen comes much increase. I call that productivity. And as homeschoolers, we have to make a choice which one we want to have because you can't have them both. You can't have a nice, sterile environment, no messes here, and expect productivity. These two things are mutually exclusive. And so this week I want to talk about sterility. And that's a real temptation for us as homeschoolers because it seems like we live in a fishbowl, whether it's at church or extended family. People are always watching us. Now, with many animals, as we have here, have a goat back in the background, there's going to be a mess. Fortunately, at our house, we have 5 young men, and one of their duties is to muck the stalls. Of course, being good homeschoolers, we don't call it mucking. We call it PE, physical education. Why? If they do it every week, it's very physical. If they do it in the wintertime when everything's frozen, they get a real education, folks. The temptation to be sterile. When you go to a convention and 12.5 homeschool kids walk in, they're all color coordinated. They all come in ascending heights, 3 inches apiece, just perfect intervals. They're carrying 3 instruments, but they all play proficiently. Our kid can't play Candyland. And that can be intimidating. And it can be very easy to succumb to appearance. What people think of us. How do we look just on the externals? And that's a very, very dangerous place to be. A matter of fact, God told Samuel when Jesse's sons came before him, man looks upon the outside, on the appearance, but I look at the heart. Now, there's nothing wrong with a good appearance as long as it's not disconnected from the heart. Because if that happens, what happens in the homeschool community is we lack authenticity. And I think that happened quite a bit back in the 90s and the early part of the 2000s. And I think God dealt very severely with that on a homeschooling level. If you know the history, you probably know what I'm talking about there. So we have to be careful of being afraid of making messes because we might look bad to somebody. I've oftentimes said that our kids oftentimes take 1 step back to go 2 steps forward. And if we don't give our kids the freedom to do that, if we have them so locked in with a sterile mindset, I can't make a mistake, they're not going to be very productive in life. And a second problem with sterility is this. It's based on fear. Fear of what others think, fear of failure. And the Bible says in Romans 14:23, that which is not of faith is sin. Paul told Timothy, God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. In Hebrews 11:6, Paul writes that without faith, it's impossible to please God. And so if we're always worried about making a mess and somebody seeing us, we're always fearful of that, we cannot be pleasing God. That's the opposite of faith. So today I want to encourage you, be willing to make messes. I'm not saying be foolish, but take calculated risk in life. Having animals is having a mess. That's part of it. But over time, they produce. Let's not get so locked in. Let's not live by faith, worrying only about appearance. Let's teach our kids to live life fully from the heart for God's glory. This is Kirk Smith with ICHE's Take 5.